Welcome back to the channel, where the unexplained lurks in every shadow. Tonight we venture into the chilling world of haunted police stations, places where justice and the paranormal collide. Our first stop takes us to the sleepy town of Ridgewood, where secrets linger like the smell of rain. The police station, a squat brick building with barred windows, holds a darkness that goes beyond the usual grime and despair. It's in the holding cells, those cold, cramped spaces where hope goes to die, that the true terror resides. Officers on the night shift whisper of a ghostly figure, a man, they say, dressed in a tattered prison uniform. He paces the corridor outside the cells, his footsteps eerily silent, his face obscured by the shadows. Some say he mutters to himself, his voice a low, guttural growl that sends chills down their spines. Others claim he simply stares into the cells, his eyes burning with an unnatural intensity. One young officer, fresh out of the academy, told of how he felt an icy breath on the back of his neck while making his rounds. When he spun around, heart pounding in his chest, he saw the shadowy figure vanish before his very eyes. The experience left him shaken, his youthful confidence shattered by the encounter. An old-timer on the force, a grizzled veteran with stories that would make your hair stand on end, recounted a night when the apparition interacted with a prisoner. The prisoner, a petty thief awaiting his day in court, had been screaming and kicking at the cell door, demanding to be released. Suddenly the cell fell silent. The officers rushed to investigate, fearing the worst. They found the prisoner huddled in the corner, his eyes wide with terror, his face ashen. When they asked him what had happened, he could only stammer out a single word: ghost. He refused to elaborate, his spirit seemingly broken by whatever he had witnessed. The stories continued, each one adding to the legend of the haunted holding cell. Some dismissed them as overactive imaginations or the product of long, lonely nights on duty. But those who had seen the apparition with their own eyes knew the truth. Something sinister lurked within the walls of the Ridgewood police station. The source of the haunting remains a mystery. Some speculate that the ghost is a former inmate who died within the confines of the cell, his spirit unable to find peace. Others believe he may be a victim of a crime, his restless soul seeking justice or perhaps revenge. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: the holding cell at the Ridgewood police station is a place of palpable fear. Even in the light of day, a sense of unease pervades the cell block. The air feels heavy, as if laden with unseen sorrow and despair. The ghost in the holding cell is a constant presence, a reminder that some things cannot be explained, only endured. Our next tale takes us to the sprawling metropolis of New York City, where the constant hum of life never truly ceases. Nestled among the towering skyscrapers and bustling streets is the 13th Precinct, a place where the weight of the city's darkness seems to settle most heavily. Here, amidst the flickering fluorescent lights and the endless paperwork, walks the ghost of Officer Michael O'Brien, a man who gave his life in the line of duty. A decorated officer known for his bravery and dedication, O'Brien was gunned down during a routine traffic stop, his life cut tragically short. His fellow officers were devastated by his loss, but it wasn't long before they began to experience strange and unsettling occurrences within the precinct. Doors would slam shut on their own, footsteps echoed in empty hallways, and the faint scent of O'Brien's cologne lingered in the air. At first, these incidents were dismissed as grief-stricken imaginations, the product of heavy hearts and sleepless nights. But as the occurrences grew more frequent and intense, it became clear that something truly extraordinary was happening. One evening, a young officer was working late, catching up on paperwork in the quiet of the station. As he sat at his desk, he heard the distinct sound of O'Brien's voice calling his name. He looked up, his heart pounding in his chest, but the room was empty. Another officer, a seasoned veteran who had worked alongside O'Brien for years, claimed to have seen his former partner standing at the end of a hallway. He called out to him, but the figure simply vanished into thin air. Perhaps the most compelling evidence of O'Brien's ghostly presence came from a security camera in the station's evidence lock. The footage, time-stamped and corroborated by multiple witnesses, showed a shadowy figure resembling O'Brien walking past the camera before disappearing into the darkness. The footage sent shockwaves through the precinct, confirming what many had already suspected. Officer Michael O'Brien was still with them, his spirit unable to find peace. Some believe that O'Brien's ghost remains at the 13th precinct out of a sense of duty, watching over his former colleagues and ensuring their safety. Whatever the reason for his presence, one thing is certain. The ghost of Officer O'Brien has become an integral part of the 13th precinct's history. Chapter 3: The Abandoned Station. Our final destination takes us to the outskirts of Detroit, a city scarred by time and economic hardship. It's here, in a desolate and forgotten corner of the city, that we find the abandoned 3rd Precinct Police Station, a hulking concrete structure that stands as a testament to urban decay. Once a beacon of law and order, the 3rd Precinct had fallen into disrepair, a victim of budget cuts and shifting demographics. The once bustling halls now stood silent, save for the scuttling of rats and the whisper of the wind whistling through broken windows. It was here, in this desolate and forgotten place, that a group of paranormal investigators decided to spend the night, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural activity that had been rumored for years. Armed with cameras, EMF readers, and EVP recorders, they ventured into the heart of the abandoned station, their every step echoing in the eerie silence. As darkness enveloped the city, the investigators set up their equipment, their breath misting in the cold, damp air. They spread out through the station, their flashlights cutting through the gloom, searching for any sign of the paranormal. It wasn't long before they began to experience strange and unsettling occurrences. The temperature dropped suddenly, sending shivers down their spines. Unexplained shadows seemed to dart at the edge of their vision, and disembodied whispers seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. One investigator, a skeptic by nature, was documenting their findings in a notebook when he felt a cold hand grip his shoulder. He spun around, his heart racing, but there was no one there. Another investigator, a seasoned paranormal researcher, was reviewing footage from one of the cameras when he noticed a strange anomaly. In the background, behind one of the holding cells, a shadowy figure seemed to materialize out of thin air. The figure, tall and imposing, appeared to be wearing a police uniform from a bygone era. It stood motionless for a moment, its features obscured by the shadows, before vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. As the night wore on, the activity intensified. The investigators' equipment malfunctioned, batteries drained inexplicably, and their EMF readers spiked erratically. Disembodied voices whispered their names, taunting them, urging them to leave. One by one, the investigators began to experience overwhelming feelings of dread and anxiety. Some complained of feeling dizzy and nauseous, while others felt an oppressive weight pressing down on their chests. Despite their growing fear, the investigators pressed on, determined to document whatever paranormal forces were at play within the abandoned station. They set up an EVP session in the old interrogation room, hoping to capture the voices of the spirits that seemed to be haunting the building. As they sat in the darkness, listening intently to the white static emanating from the recorder, a deep, guttural voice boomed out, seemingly from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Get out!" the voice commanded, its tone laced with anger and menace. The investigators were stunned. They had never experienced anything like it before. They tried to communicate with the entity, but their questions were met with only silence. Suddenly, the lights in the interrogation room began to flicker violently. The air grew thick and heavy, as if a storm were brewing inside the very walls of the building. The investigators, their nerves shot, decided to pack up their equipment and leave. As they made their way out of the abandoned station, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, followed by unseen eyes. Thank you for braving the darkness with us tonight. If you enjoyed these tales of terror, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more explorations into the unknown.